name is Anthony Luscre, Kilo 8 Zulu Tango, and tonight's topic is contest logging software. My email address, Kilo 8 Zulu Tango at AWRL.net, and my website, www.K8ZT.com. And please feel free to contact me with questions that you might have. Now, the link, the session I'm going to present tonight has a number of links in it. And to be able to click on the links, of course, you're going to need to actually click on the slideshow presentation. So I have a link, tiny.cc/logsoft. And that'll take you to the presentation later on when we're done, so you can go through it. There'll be homework tonight. In any place you see this little link icon, that means that it's a clickable link in the document. This link will give you access to the Google slideshow. If for some reason you need a PDF, you can also click on this little link and download a PDF of the document. That will also have all the links for the resources in it. So if you're new to contesting, I thought I'd throw this out. There is an AWR webinar that I did on November 3rd. You can watch the webinar, or you can view the slideshow for it. Also, the AWRL came out with a new book. It's almost 2 years old now, but it's a very good book. It's Amateur Radio Contesting for Beginners, and it's by Doug K8ZT, and it's a very good resource. So, contest logging. Paper logs for contesting were the norm before the use of computers. With large stations, especially multi-op stations, a second list called a dupe sheet was created to quickly check if a station had already been worked. Some of you may remember the large dupe sheets. I remember field day, we cut out pieces of plywood and mounted them on there. And often a separate person assisted with the logging to be able to manage the dupe sheet. Contesting software features include quick and efficient logging of contacts, automatic dupe checking, so you don't need to worry about that dupe sheet anymore, keyboard and other shortcuts and macros to speed contacts and logging. It also helps you avoid common logging mistakes. If you don't have enough characters in the call sign, or if you've put a space in there by mistake, things like that, it will not let you log the contact. It also allows you to display your current score. In the days of paper logging, there was no way to know what your final score was going to be done. Your current score was during the contest. Features to enhance operations included radio interfacing to read the frequency of the radio or to change frequency from the logging software. DX cluster or reverse beacon network spot integration into the software. The ability to key your CW with your radio from your keyboard. Also, the ability to key voice memories. Display of current statistics. The worked multipliers and your needed multipliers can both be displayed. QSO rate. Features to enhance operation include band maps to visually display the stations that have been spotted either via the spotting network or stations that you've put in that you've worked. It also shows the multiplier status of each of the stations. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. You can also change bands or frequencies or modes from the software instead of the radio, or vice versa. Paper versus computer logging. Some advantages, disadvantages. Well, with paper, it's pretty easy to use. Most of us know how to use it. It's good for use in the field. It doesn't require a computer. It doesn't require power, and it's usually free. Some of the disadvantages with paper logging, legibility issues, especially with people's handwriting like mine. No automatic time band data entry. I remember working one contest and I kept forgetting to change the band in my log the whole time, and that ended up with a useless log that was unsuitable for submission. So it's nice to be able to have that information put in automatically. No error checking features. No dupe detection. No multiplier recognition. No radio interface control. No CW keying. No easy or allowed method for entry submission. With many contests moving to not allowing paper logs for submission, it's sometimes difficult. You'll find yourself having to go back and enter your paper log into a computer log to be able to submit it. And finally, it's not searchable or sortable. You can't quickly see whether you've worked a station by searching through your log. Some of the main advantages of computer logging versus paper logging: helps avoid mistakes in logging, displays needed multipliers. It's very easy to submit your log electronically to the contest sponsor when you're done. It's easy to import QSOs from your contest log into your station log. And it's very easy to export QSOs from your contest log to Logbook of the World, EQSL, and other online QSLing systems. There's a couple kinds of logging software. I'm going to break it down into a couple categories here, but basically we're comparing contest logging software versus general logging software. And some packages will fit in multiple categories. The first one is what I'm going to refer to as a comprehensive logbook software. This would be the one that would keep track of your station log. It'd be the one main logbook that you would use. Then there's also contest logging software. Now, some comprehensive logbook software has contesting features built in. Some does not. But many people prefer to use a separate logging software for the extra features that it provides during contesting. Other ham radio software may also have built-in logging capabilities. If you're using WSJTX for FT8 or FT4 or FL Digi, they both can maintain logs of the stations you're working. And then the last category of logging software is something called station management software. It's a logbook plus other tools. So programs such as Ham Radio Deluxe, DX Lab have many features, including CWD code, RTTY translation or decoding, and a number of things in them in addition to the logbook and radio interface control. So I put together a little diagram of what I call the comprehensive logbook software, or a little reference to the Lord of the Rings, for one log to rule them all. The reason why I suggest this is even if you do use contest logging software, it's not the best thing for dealing with a lot of the features that you might want to do with your comprehensive log. So by having a comprehensive logbook software, you can tie all the other logbook logging software in your shack all together. So I'm using N1MM for my contesting logging software, and it flows into my comprehensive station log, where I'm using Logic by PDA. But also when I'm running WSJTX, FT8, FT4, again, that feeds into my comprehensive logbook, and it's set up so it automatically flows in. If I'm using portable logging software in the field, when I come back, I can import it into my station log. If I have paper logbooks, I can transcribe them and put them into the logbook software. And fortunately, I've already done this. Occasionally, I'll have a paper log when I'm operating portable, and I'll come back and type it in. The other thing the comprehensive logbook does then is it allows you to feed information out of your station. So you can feed information to Logbook of the World, and Logbook of the World can send back its confirmations to your station log. EQSL can do the same thing. You can push out information to Club Log, and you can push out information to QRZ where there's logs there. And I hear some people say, well, I keep all my logging on QRZ. Well, that's great, but there's many limitations to it. It's much better if you have your own comprehensive logbook software in your station and then push your logs out to QRZ. It's very simple to do. So that's just my advertisement for having comprehensive logbook software for your station. Let's talk about the differences between a general logging program and contesting logging software. In general logging software, you want detailed information on your contacts, maybe the name of the operator and their town they're in, and the RST and the time and the frequency. All that information is important, but some of it is more important than others. In contest logging, we want just the minimal needed information, just the time, the frequency, the station's call sign, and the exchange. We don't want extraneous information like their name if that's not part of the exchange. In general logging software, we can manage QSL records. In a contesting logging software, we can do things like calculate the contest score. General logging contains all the QSOs over the whole time that we've been operating, whereas contesting logging software just contains the QSOs from a single contest. That way, when you see a dupe, you know you've worked them in that contest. General logging software can show you the previous contacts you've had with the station. And in contest logging software, it's more about letting you know about the dupes so that you don't work them again on the same band. General logging is typically configured for all types of QSOs. Contest logging software is configured based on the specific contest you're in. General logging software can keep track of award categories. Contest logging can show you the multis both the potential multis and the multis you've already worked, such as countries, states, counties, etc., depending on the contest. And general logging software is great for import, export, and interfacing with other software. Contest logging software is very good at producing two files when you're done. The Carbillo file, which is the .log file, which is submitted to the contest sponsors for your entry, and an ADIF file, which can be used to export your data into your general contest logging software. For more information on general logging, you can view the AWR webinar I did on amateur radio logging back, I forget when I did that, but the video and the slideshow are both available. So what we're going to be talking about from this point on is mainly contesting software. We're going to get out of the general logging software aspect of things. So there's a wide variety of contesting software out there, and I'm going to focus mainly on Windows tonight, but I have information on logging software for iOS, Macintoshes, Linux, Raspberry Pi, and other software at my website, K8ZT.com. /contesting. And again, whenever you see this link, you can simply click on the link. It'll take you out to the website, and looks like I have to fix a broken link, so I will fix that. These are the 6 biggest users in the CQ Worldwide 2018. I just glanced at the 2019. I didn't bother to change my slide because the numbers were almost identical again last year, with N1MM having 47% of the logs, N3FJP 7%, and WinTest 6%. So these 3 logging programs had about 60% of the participants using them. The other ones, the other 40% were spread between these 3 programs and another couple dozen programs. So there was a wide variety of programs used by different people. But again, these are links also, so you can simply click on these links and it'll take you out to the website for that particular piece of software. I would suggest you try multiple programs to find the one that fits you best. Some programs might have more features, whereas other programs might be simpler to use. One program may fit your operating style better than others. Fortunately, most of the programs have either a demo or a free version for you to try ahead of time. It might be limited to maybe only 35 contacts or one specific contest, but it'll be enough for you to try it out and see whether you like it. In most cases, files can easily be transferred between any of the programs using the ADIF format, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. There's reviews available on eham.net, and there's a wide variety of YouTubes of the various logging programs, so you can look at them online and see what other people think. Also, ask fellow hams about their experiences with the software to see what they might find useful for the logging software. So there's a variety of ways to get information on the different programs to find the one that works best for you. In the next few slides, I will explore some of the features of a typical contest logging program. The screenshots and descriptions of N1MM Logger Plus, also known as N1MM Plus, are from a slideshow with about 120 slides that I have that goes into much more detail than I'll have time to do tonight, and a video that's about 2.5 hours long. What I did is I put together an Elmer Day, and we had about 60-some people from around the country, and we did a whole day on N1MM logging and answered questions and help people get their stations set up with this software. So you can skip through the slideshow or the video and just pick out the parts you're interested in. Due to its popularity, I'm using N1MM for the screenshots. This should in no way be construed as an endorsement of this specific product. All the products I mentioned before have pluses and minuses to them, and there are a lot of good products, so I'm not saying you should use this one, but I'm going to use it so we only have to show examples from one. The other most popular piece of software, N3FJP, has some great videos on its website, so if you go there and watch the help videos, it'll give you the same sort of screenshots that I'm going to display for N1MM tonight. And this is just a screenshot of the main logging screen for N3FJP and the little interactive map, which is pretty neat that they have when you're working contests that have states as multipliers. So what we're going to be seeing now are N1MMM screenshots. The entry window is the main starting place for everything you do with N1MM. And let me just mention one thing before we even start talking about N1MM. There are so many windows that you can open that you will fill up multiple monitors with windows and you'll cover some of them up. The whole idea of N1MM is it uses distributed windows that you can rearrange on your screen, so you have small multiple windows with different functions in each one. The main one, though, is the entry window. This is the one window that rules everything else. This is where all the menus are at for all the windows, to open the windows and close the windows, etc. So this is the main menu for all the windows you might open in N1MM. So the entry window is broken down into some main areas. The first part is the title bar, and that's on almost every program. But what's important about this, it'll tell you if your computer interface to your radio is working because it'll display the frequency here. It'll also tell you which VFO you're on if you're using multiple VFOs, and if you're using more than one radio, it'll let you know that you're using a multiple radio operation. The menu bar, which we'll go into great detail later, this line in the blue section is the main area you're going to be typing. This is pretty much the only area you're going to be typing in the program. You're going to put the call sign in there, press the tab key to move to the next tab, or the space bar to move to the next square, and so forth, and put the exchange in. We'll go through that in more detail. The next little section is the CQ versus search and pounce button, and you can choose which of these two you want. The difference is it brings up different sets of macros when you press your macro keys, depending on whether you're trying to run or whether you're searching and pouncing. These are the macro buttons, and you can bring them up by clicking on them here or by pressing the corresponding F key. So for example, in the normal setup, when you press F4, it sends your call sign. You could also click on this button here to send your call sign. The last part of the screen is what's called the messages section. And that's where it'll show you information, like right here it's telling me call history user text appears when enabled. And this just shows up once at the beginning to let me know that I am using the call history function of the software. Other things that'll show up during here on here depend on what you're doing in the contest. So you might see messages here about the call history of the log that you're looking at, or if, for example, there's an error sending CW to let you know that you're not able to key your CW. So this is just where you're going to see little brief messages that occur. So let's look at the main part of this screen, and that's the entry of your contact. So we type the contact in, the station's call sign in, we press the space bar, and it's going to put our sent number in automatically if we have a serial number in this contest, and it'll jump over for the information for the exchange that you're receiving from the other station. So in other words, you don't need to type in your exchange, it'll be there automatically. And if it's a case of a serial number, it'll automatically increment. When the QSO is completed, in other words, when you've made contact and you're sure the other person's completed the contact, you press the enter key, and that moves this information from this line into our next screen, which is going to be the log screen, which I'll show in a few minutes. But the first thing is, when you type a call sign in here, it's going to appear different colors. It'll either be green if it's a potential double multiplier, red if it's a potential single multiplier, blue if it's a potential valid contact, which is the case here, but not a multiplier. And if it's gray, that means that it's not a valid contact. It's either one you've already worked before on that band, in other words, a dupe, or it doesn't fit the parameters for the contest. So let's say we're working from the United States in the ARRL DX contest. All the domestic stations will show up gray here if we type in a gray domestic call sign, because it's not a valid one to work in the contest. While you're doing the entry window, you can do a couple things. If you hit the escape key, it'll stop, it'll wipe out the entry that's there. As you're logging, I said before, you can press either the spacebar or tab to move between the windows. You press the enter key when you're done. You can also do Control Alternate Enter, and this will allow you to log an incomplete or invalid QSO with a note in the log. So let's say you've been trying to work someone for 10 minutes and you're really not sure whether you worked them, and you don't want to try and take a chance and just guess that you worked them. If you do Control Alternate Enter, it'll put an entry in your logbook, says you're not claiming that contact in your score, but the log checking software can see that maybe you did work that person if they had them in the log. So it's a great way to, when you're not sure and you don't want to take a chance in hitting the enter key, Control Alt and Enter will log it with a message that it's an incomplete or invalid QSO. Control plus N adds a note to the log. So if you need to type in a note like, I need to make sure I look for this, I send this person a QSL card because they really need one, or whatever you might want to put there. Or great signal, or person had a chirp on their signal. Anything you might want to see afterward to let you know what it is, you can put a note. That doesn't go out in the log when you send your submission to the contest sponsor. It's just for your viewing. And then the most important thing is alternate W. That's basically the undo. It wipes out all the information you put in that entry screen and gives you a fresh entry screen. So everything in here would be wiped out and you get a blank screen. And I will demonstrate all these with the actual logging software after I go through the slideshow. Let's say you've hit the enter key and all of a sudden you've decided, oops, I made a mistake. I need to change something. Well, Control D will delete the last QSO from your log completely, or Control Q will allow you to edit it. So let's say you copied the exchange wrong and you realize that you can do Control Q and do that. Once you're in the quick edit mode by doing Control Q, you can use other shortcuts to go into the different pieces of information to edit. And I'm not going to go into that right now and deeper. Control O is important if you have multiple operators. It lets you change which operators at the station. And there's two ways to do that. You can either do Control O and then type in your call sign, or you can simply type in this OP-ON, O-P-O-N, instead of a station call sign. And instead of putting something in your log, that lets you type in the new operator. So when you switch positions at field day, you don't have to make a little paper note of such and such took over at 1323 Zulu. You can also change your current frequency and mode by clicking on the various buttons in the software, and you can also change modes if it's a multi-mode contest. If your radio is using cat control, you can also change your radio and it'll change the settings on the screen. So in our screen here, if we click on the 80 meters, it will jump to the 80 meter band as opposed to the 6 meter band, which I'm on right now. So if there was phone content, if there was CW, it would show up as another column here. And if there was RIDI or digital in the same contest, it would show up with, again, another column. You can also change the radio's frequency by typing in the frequency in kilohertz directly into the entry window. So let's say someone's on 7.032, you could just type in 7032, hit the enter key, and it will change your radio frequency automatically to that. As I said earlier, once you press the enter key, it puts the information into the log. And the log is the running list of all the stations you've worked so far. You can also edit this log by right-clicking on each of these entries, and that'll let you edit anything on the exchange. So if we right-click on the entry here, that brings up this little screen, and we can choose to edit it, delete it, or we can even jump to that frequency if we want to go back there for some reason to listen to the person again to make sure that was really the call sign we copied. The band map is another way that you can change frequency. The information will show up either from a spot logs or from the reverse beacon network or Telnet or however you're getting your DX spots, or if you type something in, it'll show up here after you've typed it in, either whether you've worked it or whether you've just QSO'd from the frequency to a different frequency. It'll let you know. So it's a great way to put stations in that you want to come back and work later. And you do that by putting them in the entry window and then simply turning the dial on your VFO away from that frequency, and it'll write the information to the band map, and you can go back to it later. You can also move through the band map by using control keys, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Again, the band map is coded in the same way as the entry window is. A green entry is a double multiplier. A red entry is a single multiplier. A blue entry is a potential valid contact but not a multiplier, and a gray is a non-valid or a dupe. So in this case, I've already worked these two stations. So the calls get on the band map either by your entry or by coming in through a Telnet window, or in the case of a multi-op station, you can also communicate across the network and your spots will show up on other people's radios, other people's contest logging software, I should say. If you double click in the spot map and the band map, it'll automatically jump to that spot and change your frequency. Then you can simply copy the exchange from the other station, press the enter key, and you're all ready to go. So you've not had to type anything into the field other than the exchange. You can also move around the band map by using the control keys. Control up arrow or control down arrow will jump to the next available station to work. If you do control alternate and up arrow or down arrow, it'll move to the next potential station that you can work that's a multiplier. And you can adjust your band map by right-clicking on the band map, and it'll bring up this big menu. And you can do things like remove spots, remove a single spot if it's a bad spot. You can change your Telnet settings, your filtering settings. You can reset your radio frequency. You can even find a call sign by using alternate F8, where you can type it in and it'll jump through your band map and find that station if it's been spotted. You connect to a DX cluster by using the Telnet window. So again, yet another window that you can pop open. This window you can make very small because you don't need to see it afterward, and you can choose which Telnet spotter you want to use, and then you can also filter things like choose which countries you want to see, or spots only from a certain distance from your location. You can also use this little type where it says type up here. You can put in commands and use any of the DX cluster commands such as SHDX to show to refresh the spots. There's also a little button to click on to do that because it's a command you use quite often. If you're not that familiar with the DX clusters that are available, you can go to this link for more information on DX clusters. I would suggest you choose one close by. It makes the filtering process a little bit easier, and it makes it more likely you'll see spots that are valid for your location. Just a little extra tech thing here. If Telnet is not working and you're using Windows 10, by default, Windows 10 Telnet is turned off. So you may need to turn it on. I'm not going to go into detail on how to do that today, but all the instructions are here on this little page on this sheet, and there's also a video on how to do it. So if you set up Telnet and it's not working, it might mean because it's turned off in your Windows system. Oops, we don't need to play the video right now. We'll just skip that. Okay. The next thing is the check partial window, also known as super check partial. N1MM simply refers to it as the check window. And it's actually a multiple check window. There's multiple panes in here with different things, and we'll talk about each of these separately. But the first one is the calls in your log. So these are stations you've already worked in this first column. The next one is a master list of calls that you download, the master.scp list from the super partial check site. These are contesters who are active in the last 2 years, and they'll show up in that list. And then the third one is this column of checks is looking at the incoming Telnet feed for valid call signs. So they're call signs that you've started typing in that match one of these characteristics. So let me just show you how to do that real quick here. We'll just bring up N1MM, and I will come back to that in a second. So let me just start it up now so that it'll be running in the background. And we'll come back to that in a few moments. So here was an example. I start typing in the call N8I, and I haven't finished it yet. And you notice it popped up and says, hey, you've already worked in N8IVN. Is that who it is? Or is it one of these people that are in the master super partial check? Or is it one of these people that's in the call history file that you've loaded for this contest? And that gives me an idea of what this call sign might be if I'm having trouble picking out the last letter. And I can simply double click here and it would load this call sign or this call sign or this call sign, or I can realize real quick and say, hey, that was a dupe, I'm going to move on. That's obviously the station I've already worked. And again, here's another example. This is called the reverse call history lookup, very similar to the super partial check, but now instead of putting in a call sign, I put in an exchange with no call sign at all. When I type in this exchange of WPA for field day, it lists all the stations that are in the reverse lookup that are in Western Pennsylvania. And notice they're completely different, so the call signs are not even close to each other, but it's just giving me an idea of all the stations that are using that for an exchange. So that's the reverse call history. Now I could have done 1D also for the class, but that's not very helpful because there's so many 1Ds, it'd be just overwhelming. This is the first of many warnings I'm going to give you. Using super partial check can be very great, but it can also cause lots of problems. If you let the software try and identify the station as opposed to actually hearing the call sign and confirming it in your brain, you may end up putting in the wrong call sign and lose points for that contact, and there may also be penalties for wrong entries in the contest, so you may lose more than 1 point. So super check, partial, and reverse check should not be blindly relied upon. Make sure you actually copy the other station's call sign. Just use them for confirmation. Other optional windows include the info window. This is a window that shows you information such as your rate, the last time, how long it's been since you made your last contact. It'll show you a 5-minute band timer and other things. And this all can be adjusted with this little settings menu. So if you right click on this window, it brings up the settings menu and you can choose what you want to display on there. So you can do things like sunrise, sunset information for the station. And it's all up here. You can see all this information for this. Another window that you can have open is the score summary window. That'll give you a running total throughout the contest of where your score is at. It'll also tell you the approximate value of a new multiplier versus a new queue. In this case, it's 1, but sometimes you'll see this number go up very high. That means that you probably are not working as many queues as you should be working in that contest, and that would be very helpful to increase your score. The multipliers window can show you multipliers that you've worked and multipliers that are available through the spots that are coming in through Telnet if you're using that or reverse beacon network. So in this case, all the ones in blue are sections that I've worked. The ones in red are ones that have been spotted that I haven't worked yet. So Puerto Rico was spotted and I haven't worked it yet, and Quebec was spotted but I haven't worked it yet. So this was the 160 contest a couple weeks ago, actually. And the other window that you can see is this is the window where you choose which multipliers you want to view. So again, this is our entry window where our main menu's at. We go to Windows, and these are all the windows we can open. When I go down to multipliers, it then says, okay, you want to open a multiplier window, but what is the multiplier for this contest? And when you pick the correct one, it'll give you a display that's proper. So here's some examples. This is showing countries, and this is a contest where each of the countries can be worked on each of the bands for additional multipliers. So this gets a little bit big. It's very helpful to have a second monitor. I normally have this on my left monitor while I'm operating. And you can see that we have green for double multiplier, red for single multiplier, and blue for potential new stations, but not a multiplier. And we can simply double click on one of these and it'll actually change bands, change frequencies, put that call sign into our entry window. Then all we need to do is work the station. This is an example of a zone map down here. So we can have more than one open at the time because this is CQ worldwide and zones are one of the multipliers and the other multipliers are countries. So we can have more than one window open. As I said earlier, you can get so many windows open that you can easily get lost. So if you're just starting out, don't worry too much about opening all these extra windows that you might not need. It just may be confusing. But as you use the program more and more, you'll be more comfortable. And again, a second monitor or even a third monitor in my case can be very helpful. During the CQ Worldwide, for example, I might keep this up on my monitor above my head, which you can see in my display here right below my blimp. Here's another example. In this case, we're looking at multipliers for countries, for bands. And again, remember, when anything that comes from the spotting network, you have to make sure you still copy it correctly. Other windows that you might want to open, you can open a gray line map, and it also shows spots on it, which you can also double click on and go to. So when you see a station show right up on the gray line, you might want to double click on them, see if you can work that station. The move multipliers is mainly for use in multi-op stations, but there's a move multiplier window available also. Now, one of the things we haven't talked about yet, I just mentioned that, was macros. And macros are a way that you can press one key to send multiple characters. So if I'm in the running mode, the station on the left is calling CQ, he's running stations. All he does is press the F1 key and it sends CQ along with his call sign. So he sets up exactly how he wants that macro to look for CQ. He can have it repeat 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, put DE in, not put DE in, put his call sign, and then he's all ready to hit that. Whenever he hits F1, he can CQ. The station that's searching and pouncing, when he hears the station calling CQ, he types the call sign into his entry window, presses the space bar, and gets ready to get the exchange. If it's a phone contest, he says his call sign out loud, or if it's a CW contest, he can simply press the F4 key to send his call sign until the other station responds to him. When the other station copies a call sign, he types it into his call sign box, presses the space bar, and waits to put the exchange in. He can respond to the station by talking or by recorded. He can have recorded voice messages, or he presses the F5 key, and that sends CW telling acknowledge the other station's call and giving his exchange. So if this was if I'm K8ZT and I'm the searching station, when he hits this button, it would say K8ZT 599 Oregon, or whatever the exchange might be. I would press the space bar and type in that exchange he gave me, and I would send my exchange back to him, and so forth. And we would continue through the whole contest. So you notice we're only pressing a few keys to do all the entry work here, and then finally the last key when we've completed the QSO is enter. In addition to the macros, there's also a number of keyboard shortcuts that you can use to jump to certain things or do things without using your mouse. So if you're really flying along and you want to do something really quick, you can do some of these with keyboard shortcuts. Now, some of these keyboard shortcuts are obviously ones we've talked about before. When you're ready to actually log the station that you just contacted, the enter key is the keyboard shortcut. The space bar is the one that moves you between the fields. I talked about earlier, you can do control to enter when you want to accept the QSO but not count it for credit, and a variety of other things that we talked about. So I'm not going to go through all these. I just want you to have them available to you, so that's why they're in the presentation. After the contest, one of the great things about using computer software is you can easily generate the Cabrillo file. This is the one that you need to send to the sponsors of the station to officially enter the contest. Some stations have you upload this through a website. Other stations have you email it to them. Just check the rules of the specific contest to see how they want you to do it. The other file that you can generate very easily is an ADIF. This is an amateur data information exchange file, and you can export this file and then you can use it to import it into your station log or upload it to Logbook of the World or EQSL or other sources. It's very important that you protect your data. Make copies of all the data on your devices onto another device, either a remote drive, a USB drive, online storage, Dropbox, MS OneDrive, Google Drive, etc. So after every contest, I make sure I back up copies. One thing you cannot do with N1MM is your log has to be on a local hard drive. You can't have your log be on a remote hard drive or an online storage system. So you can't have your log, for example, residing in OneDrive. It has to be local for the log to work. Afterward, you can always copy it there, but you can't access it when you're during the contest by having your log be remote. It won't let you do that. Now, there is something slightly different. When you have a multi-operator station, it shares the logs between all the different stations, but one station is the master station that has the log. But if one station will go offline, everyone would have the ability to recreate the same log information, so it doesn't take the multi down when one computer might go off. Again, that's a little beyond today's scope. because we're really talking more about single operators. After the contest, when everything's all relaxed and you're not in a hurry anymore, you can view statistics to help you do a better job next year. Just fill your curiosity. So by opening up the window for statistics, you have two choices: a statistics with numbers or graphs that you can bring up, and you can choose what you want to see by choosing the row and column. So in this case, we've chosen the row to be the different countries, and for the columns, we have the different bands listed. So this is a quick way I could scroll through this with the mouse and see all the different countries I worked during that contest and what bands I worked them on, and how many bands, how many total contacts did I have with that particular country. So in this contact, you notice Spain, I worked four times on 20 meters, and I accumulated 22 points by working those different stations. So these are just some examples of statistics by changing. So here we're looking at the hour versus band, so time versus the band. The next one we're looking at zone versus band. And on the third one we're looking at country prefix versus the day. So this is the 2-day contest, and we're seeing we've worked different stations on different days. Zoom needs a better cough button, so you don't have to reach over there and mute yourself. Okay. Then you can also view the statistics in a graph format by clicking on the little graph tab at the top and then choosing the columns down here the same way we did before. There are some extras. Digital modes can be used with these programs, but what is required is, if you want to operate digital modes, N1MM requires you to have a helper program. So in the case of RTTY, you need one of these 4 different programs. Either MMVARI, MMTTY, Two-Tone, or FLDigi can all be used for RTTY. For PSK, MMVARI or FLDigi. For FT8 or FT4, WSJTX or JTDX can be used along with the program. So you need to run the other program along with N1MM. It also requires you to do some additional configuration in N1MM, which we're not going to have time to talk about tonight, but you need to set that up, and there's information on how to do that. And I have 2 links here, one on the actual installation process that shows you more information on how to do it, and another one on how to actually operate it once you get the link set up. The files that you create through your logs, whether it's through contest logging software or general station contest logging software, the information can be exchanged through different programs through the amateur data interchange format, which is also known as an ADIF file. Sometimes it's also shown as an ADI file when you're only using 3-letter suffixes for your file name. So either an ADIF or ADI file is the amateur data interchange format. And this works with almost all modern software to be able to exchange information between the programs. There's also a variety of tools available for manipulating ADIF files, and we'll talk about those in an upcoming slide here. The other type of file that you want to create after a contest is the Cabrillo file, and this is a log file that is submitted to the contest sponsors. This was originally created by Trey N5KO, and it supports reliable electronic log submission and automates the log checking process. And when he designed this, he didn't want it to be specific to any one contest or any one organization. So he was trying to think of a name, and the legend goes he looked out of his window, and in the distance was this college campus, the College of Cabrillo in California. So that's what he named it after. And this is the Cabrillo's team logo here, so I included that. So that's some trivia you can amaze your friends with on what Cabrillo means. There are also a variety of tools available for manipulating Cabrillo files. And here's links to a variety of those tools. Here's some ADIF tools, some more ADIF, some Cabrillo file tools, some contest conversion files to create Cabrillo files if you've not used the logging software. Let's say you just had a spreadsheet or you're pulling stuff out of another program. You can create your own Cabrillo files. In statistics, these are statistics analyzers. Here's another log analyzer program you can use after the contest. And then also I've included one link here for /0 fonts. I find that very useful to have a font that's very distinctive, so I don't make mistakes between putting O's and zeros in when I'm logging my stations. So there's a number of different fonts you can use. If you don't have one, this is a link to a variety of fonts out there. 81C does a lot of these utilities. He has a lot of great utilities out there for ADIF file conversions. So that's the basic program. We're going to go ahead and take questions here, and I will also do some demos. But before I do that, just a reminder again, tiny.cc/logsoft will give you access to this full presentation, so slide presentation, so you have all the links in it. Also, if you need a PDF, you can click on the PDF link. Feel free to email me if you need to contact me. And my website also has a whole page on contesting, on contesting software and logging software in general. I also have a link, tiny.cc/K8ZT-P, which gives you a list of all the programs I've done over the last 10 or 11 months. Tonight's presentation, I counted recently, is number 51. So I've done 51 online presentations, live presentations this year during COVID. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll take questions. And while we do that, I'm also going to bring up N1MM so I can do demonstrations.
I might comment that after this is over with, Anthony will be sending us the PDF, and I will include it with the follow-up email so everybody will have it from that, as well as the chat tonight that's got a lot of good links into it.
So let me just go ahead and we'll pretend we're in a contest here. I was actually this is actually the CWT, which I worked this morning, but let's say I heard a station calling. As I start typing it in there, notice when I typed in K3L, I've not worked another K3L, so that's going to be a multiplier. And when I do that, you can see in my check partial, super check partial, these are the stations that match that call sign. And these are the stations that are in the history log for this, that have worked this contest. So you might think, well, K3LR, well, there's K3LR right there. So that's one possibility. So there's also some stations here in the history log that are similar but aren't exactly the same. Is it K2L or is it K3UL? So those are some close. But see, as I do that, when I type in that, now it's saying, you put a little check mark and say, yes, that's in the super check partial. There it is right there. I press the space bar, and now it puts in the information. The reason why I put the information in automatically is I'm using history file. I've chosen to configure my program to use the history file for this particular contest. So it pulls the information in from that history file. What I need to do now is make sure I confirm that that's actually the exchange the person sends me. It's not good enough just to use the history file. Warning for the third time, you will get burned if you just use the history file. So be warned. Now, I've already finished this contest up, but let's pretend that I just worked him. I'm going to press enter here and watch what happens. It puts it down here in my log, puts the time in, the station, the frequency I was on, and the mode. I have it set on PSK right now. My radio's on PSK, so it put another mode in there that it shouldn't have, but I was working PSK the last time I left the radio go, so that's why it put PSK in there, and it put his exchange information in. It also shows it down here. Now, if this was a contest where you work the same station more than once, you'll see all the previous times you've worked that station here. So let's work another station. Let's work Dan here. So as I start typing Dan in, he's not on the list here, and he might not be in the super partial check. Not everyone's in there if you're not an active contester, or he might be off the bottom of the list there. So he's not showing up, so that's okay. Now I'll put his information in. Dan, in this contest, we put his state in. So he just gave me that, and I'm going to change the mode on the radio so it doesn't give me that weird. Okay, so there we go. And if I had to go back and change it, I could change it, but I have it right. So I'm going to press the enter key, and it puts Dan's information in there. Okay, now the reason it's in bright yellow here is it said, hey, Dan's not in the contest checklist. He must not be a user contester. Is that a valid call sign? Well, you're going to find that in any contest. There's going to be people that are casual in the contest. They don't show up in the super partial check because they haven't been contesting a lot, or it's a brand new call sign, or it's someone that's never been in a contest at all before. So don't worry if you see this, especially in the state QSO parties, you'll get a lot of unique new call signs that aren't in the super partial check. Nothing wrong with that. But if this call sign was something very similar to something I thought I might have heard, that's a warning sign for me. Now, notice here I can also jump around by double-clicking on the band map. And when I do that, it puts the station's call sign in there and change the radio frequency. So you see now we changed the 7046. So I'm going to tune down where there's some other stations here. Let's go. Okay, so right here, let's say I want to work this station, this WA6. If I double click on that, notice it changes the radio's frequency. The radio's been retuned. You can't see that. It put the call sign in there, and it started looking it up in the super partial check all with just double clicking on it. Now he's very busy, and I'm not able to get through, so I want to work the next station, but I don't want to take my hands off the keyboard. I'm going to hold down the control key and press the down arrow and watch what happens. It jumps to the next available station that I can work. And this guy's not there. He's gone. So I press it again, and it jumps down again to the next station. And here's a great example of a misspotted station. One of these spots I'm sure is wrong. Okay? So again, you can't just count on what's there on the spot map. Now, let's say I tune away from this, and I go up here, and I say, I'm going to go up here where the band's not as crowded, and I hear a great piece of DX. Here's OX1R. And I press that, and I'm waiting for him. And you know what? He's got 20 people calling him right now. I'm never going to get through. So I just say, okay, I'll come back later. Watch what happens when I tune away from him. See, it left that spot there. So it puts my spot in there in the band map. And that means I can easily go back to him again and work him because I've left that information there. I used to keep a little paper list back in the days before computers with all the stations as I worked up and down the band, because I'm searching and pouncing a lot because I'm running 5 watts only here. I'm a QRP operator, so I'm not calling CQ a lot. I'm doing searching and pouncing a lot. And again, you notice as we tune around, if I stop on a station, it will automatically put the information above the call sign here. When I press the space bar, it'll bring it into the actual call sign slot. Then I copy his name. Well, this is Bob. I don't know who this is actually, so we're going to guess that's Bob. And he's in Wisconsin. So I put that information in. I give him all my information. I press enter, and now he's in the log. So that's the way the whole thing works. Now, you notice I have a bunch of other windows I didn't play around with at all. So really, when you're starting out, these 4 windows are the main windows you need to have open or want to have open. If you need you have to have the Telnet window open, but you can minimize it down. And notice we're not actually looking at it much here. So that's some information on that. Now, let's talk a little bit about configuring the software. Under the configuration,
Anthony,
okay, go ahead.
Can you demo N1MM doing a state QSO party, especially to see how it shows the county abbreviations?
Yes, let's go ahead and set one of those up right now. So let me do that real quick. To set up a new contest, you go to File and put a new log in the database. So I'm going to come over here then and choose a state QSO party. And the interesting thing is there's only one entry for all the state QSO parties. And guess what it's under? It's under QSO party. So I pick that, and then I need to choose right here which party it is. This weekend's Georgia's QSO party, so let's pick Georgia. So there's Georgia. Then I need to set what power I'm operating and all that good stuff. The other thing is I'm going to go over to this associated file tab, and I'm going to come down here where it says call history file name, and I'm going to click on change. And that will let me import the file. Now I don't have one for this particular contest. There isn't one. But if there is one, I could have the history file, so that would give me information on previous people that have worked in this contest. You can also look for these on the N1MM site. So once I get all that stuff set up, I click on OK, and now you'll notice that my entry window changes because this is a phone and CW contest both, and it says little warning, are you an out-of-state station? Yes, I'm out of state. So my exchange is going to be Ohio. Yes, that's correct. I say OK, and it closes that. So now you notice that I need to close this multiplier window and open a new one. I'm going to open the multiplier window that says counties other. So these will be the counties in Georgia, and it has a ton of counties in it. It's one of the top 5 states as far as the number of counties. If I remember, there's something like 108 counties in Georgia. or 120 counties, maybe it is. I can't remember how many, but there's a lot of them. And notice you get credit for working them on single sideband or CW, but you don't get a multiplier from working them on different bands. So that means that there's not multiple bands listed at the top here. So let's say now that I work NU8E. I'm sorry, it's KU8E. KU8E is in Georgia. And when I press this, I put in his county. I'm going to guess he's in Baldwin County. So I'll put in BALD. And there's my information. I press enter. And now you'll notice that Baldwin is now showing up with a blue for work that multiplier. And he's now in my log. I now have 1 point on 40 CW. And I have a multiplier for 1 county. And my score is now 2. So that's pretty much the way I would do that. And again, by going to File, New Log in the Database, I can add a new QSO party if I wanted to for another state. Because I already have QSO party chosen, I would simply come down here, choose the other one I want, and put that in for my QSO party. Is that anything else on that, Barry?
That's all the question was.
Okay.
There was one other question, though, if
Yes.
you want to do it now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do some other questions, and then I'll come back and move on to the next section. So let's go ahead and get questions, and I don't have my chat window open, so let me open my chat
Basically,
window.
this is from Mike in California. He wants to know when the contest data is exported to your comprehensive log program from the contest log, will the comprehensive log show exactly which contest was involved for each contest?
It depends on your software. My particular software, when I import it, it does two things. It asks me for the contest name so I can put that in at the time in case it isn't there. But what it does then is it looks in my file and it does pull it out from there. So depending on the contesting software you're using, you'll need to check on that. The other thing you're going to need to check on is, let's say I work this Georgia QSO party, and when I import that into my station log, let me fix one thing here real quick first. Got to turn off my blue blocker. Okay, there we go. We're back to normal colors. If I import this ADIF file and then import it into my contest log, it doesn't know how to understand these county names because this isn't a full county name for it. It's an abbreviated county name. So I use a piece of software from 81C, and he wrote this piece of software. I simply put in the file name for the county for the AIDF file. Let's bring up one here. By the way, N1MM stores them in your documents folder, then in a subfolder called N1MM logger, and then in the export files section is where the ADIFs and log files are. So if I were to import this one from North Carolina, I would need to convert it first into a file that would have the correct county names in it. And I use this little utility from 81C. And that was on that near the page near the end of my slideshow. For that convert ADIF to CSV file. Actually, I opened up the wrong one there. I meant to open up the one that was the county when I opened up the CSV file one. It looks the same, but it's basically converts the counties. So once I do that, I'm okay. But that is the one thing I have to do for counties to be proper. And the reason why you can't rely on the logbook for the counties is people may not be working from their county, or they might have been immobile in multiple counties. So it's important to know that. Yes. Next question.
Okay. Can you use a signal link within N1MM Plus?
Yes, you can. As I said earlier, you can do contesting with WSJTX, and you need to configure it properly, and then it would open up the WSJTX window, and the two programs work together.
Okay. Can you also the name of your comprehensive software again?
I'm sorry? Oh, my comprehensive software. Yeah. This is mine right here. It's called Logic 9 by PDA Software. It's the one with the little elephant and owl. I've been using this since the DOS version back in early 1990s. Dennis down in Georgia writes this software, and I've been using it for a long time. And I like it because I can manipulate a lot of things in it. I do a lot of database work, and I export my files into spreadsheets and do a bunch of analyzation on them. It's maybe a little more complicated than most people want, and it's not extremely cheap. The other one that I use with a lot of friends is Log4OM. a lot of people are just getting started and looking for something free. It's an excellent piece of software. It's called Log for OM. Let me just bring it up here real quick. Oh, it's not going to come up because I had a drive failure and it was on a secondary drive, so I can't bring it up. I can't bring that up right now, but it's Log for OM, log number 4 OM. And again, I discussed those in my presentation on general logging. There's a question here about, is there anything I can change about N1MM? Well, one of the great things about N1MM is it is open source. So you can contribute changes. If you're a programmer, you can contribute things. You can also give them suggestions, and they change. I'd say there's a new version that comes out once every 1 or 2 weeks with fixes and additions. There's also the ability to build your own contest. It's called a user-defined contest. So if you have a contest that there's not a log software a logging entry for it in this list, you can add your own, you can build your own contest, and then you can share that with people. So this list here is pretty long, but you can actually create your own. So it is an open source software, and there are things you can do. The one thing I would say that I think a lot of people might find confusing is just the sheer volume of things you can do. It's designed to do so many things that as a newcomer, you can be a little overwhelmed. So I suggest to people, do the things you're comfortable with and wait to learn all the extra details later on. So just don't get overwhelmed by it. Other questions?
I think that's everything in the chat room.
Okay. So let me go ahead and we'll just talk a little bit about interfacing it. If I go into the configure window, this is where you do most of the configuration of the software. And it brings up this extra window. And there's a section on configuring the hardware. So I'm using a COM port 14 with my K3S. And then these are the settings for my radio. So you pick whatever radio you want. So let's say I had a new radio I wanted to add. I'd pick the radio from the drop-down menu. I'm sorry, first I pick the COM port that's going to be on. Pick the radio that I'm using. Let's put my TS590 there. And then I hit the set button. I set the baud rate and all that information. And once I have that all correct, it will then allow me to operate it. Now, I'm going to take this out because it's going to cause major havoc if I leave it in there, because I don't have that radio hooked up to this computer. The other thing I can do is I can set it up to send CW. You can either use the DTR in the RTS and do a serial interface, a simple circuit with an opto-isolator or some transistors, and in that full slide presentation, that 120 slides that I have, that link will give you detailed information on doing this and give you some examples of the interface. Or you can use a WinKeyer like I'm using in this case with the USB connection. So that's where you configure all those different things, and you can configure the function keys as to what they're going to do. You can set up digital modes with your interface if you're running RTTY. Here's RTTY that I'm using as my helper program. You can set up for AFSK, FSK. You can set up your WinKeyer. You can set up mode control. You can even do antenna switching. I do my antenna switching for my radio. My radio senses what band I'm on and changes the antennas, but you could do it from here. You could also do rotor control. Let's bring this up real quick. This allows you to easily configure the stations to do score reporting, so that you can report to these online scoreboards. And you don't need to do anything else other than configure this. Once you configure that, it'll automatically keep pushing your score up every 5 minutes or so to these online scoreboards. And this is the setup for WSJTX. Again, I don't have time to go into that. That's a little bit involved, so I'm not going to go into that in this particular talk. So those are all the configuration things for the main part, but then there's all these other configurations, and this menu works in 2 different ways. Some of these are simply a toggle on or off. So automatically spot new search and pounds QSOs. I had that turned on. So anytime I put a new station in and it's not in the band map that I work, it automatically sends a spot to the spotting network from my log. So I'm automatically sending out spots as in addition to getting them in. So those are the ones you simply do the checkbox to turn it on or off. Other ones, such as this one right here, lets you change all the definitions by bringing up another submenu. So this is where we set up the macros with what's going to be sent when you hit each of the F keys. Or another configuration is if you want to change the skins and colors and the color scheme, you can change all the colors. If you're red green colorblind, you can change it so it's not red and green. You can make it yellow and purple or other colors that might be more useful. So that can all be customized. There's a ton of things you can change. Matter of fact, I don't run the same macros that everyone else does. I have different keys I use just because I'm used to those particular keys. So you can change any or all of that very easily. Here's where you can pop open the windows. These are all windows you can pop up. If you want to be able to key something by just typing it in, you can simply type it into here, hit the enter key, and it will send out the CW through your interface that you want. But you don't need to do that when you're doing most of your contacts in CW because you're doing it from this entry window and you can send directly from here. You can also use CW readers with this. There's a couple that are supported. I can't remember which ones. CW Get, and I can't remember the other ones. Here's where you can set up your digital interface for RIDI or PSK. Here's the information window that I talked about earlier. And notice I'm not getting a very good rate because I haven't worked anyone since this morning. Oh, you know what? We are now at the beginning time of the CW Ops third go around of the day, so there's actually probably stations working that. That's what these stations probably are. And if I'd open up that log again for the CWT, CW Ops, there we go. I can actually work one of these people for real. So let's turn on some audio here so you hear a little bit.
There it is.
Well, it helps. One thing that's a little peculiarity is I'm using the Win keyer without controls on it. It resets itself to 55 words per minute every time I restart it, which is a bad way to make contacts for most people. I can't copy 55 words a minute, so it's not a good idea to send 55 words a minute. But notice I'm jumping through the stations. My 5 watts is not making it to California very well today for some. So what I'm doing is hitting the control enter key and the control arrow key here to move between these. Or I can use the VFO to tune it. Now notice this one's showing up blue because I worked this guy earlier today. It thinks I'm in the same contest, so it's not telling me it's a multiplier because I worked him already. When you try to demonstrate it, something never works. There it goes. There we go. So I press one other key and it sends my exchange to him. Now I press enter and I get worked them. Let me just show one other thing here real quick. So let's say I'm tuning on CW and I'm not on the station. I can actually program some of the macro keys to do my spot control for my radio. So listen. So I actually did the spot by hitting my one of my macros. So depending on the particular radio you're running, you can set up different things like that. So that's an example of making a QSO. So we work WS7, WS7L, Carl. It also gives you things like headings, information. So this station, let's jump to another station here. So this N4RSS, he's in Dunwoody, Georgia. So this is some of the extra information that's in the history file. It's not something I need to know for this particular contest, but it gives me my heading to him, the distance, his first name, some other information in the history file. Other questions? Other things you'd like to see?
Someone wants to know what the minimum number of windows running RTTY with a signal link using a single laptop screen that you would recommend.
I don't usually use Radeon on my laptop because I always like to have the extra screen. Minimum number of windows running RTTY with a single link using, it's always helpful to have a second screen. What I actually have for my laptop is I actually purchased an inexpensive USB screen, plugs into the USB port, and it operates. You can also pick up inexpensive HDMIs now that are portable, that will operate in the field. I'm not sure if that's a question. Mark, if you want to just open your mic and ask me, because I'm not sure I'm answering the question properly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I downloaded it and I got are you going to use one of the engines? So
Yes.
that's a window.
Yes.
Plus the entry window.
Yes.
I don't use the band map. I don't use Telnet. I'm just trying to get into it slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And I got like 5 windows up, and I don't have enough room on the one screen. So I think I'm going to have to go, with an alternate screen, at least one to ease the pain.
I think
it's pretty ugly.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to need to. Now, one of the things that's very interesting when you're using RTTY or when you're using one of the CW decoders, it actually shows you the text on the screen, and you can just double click on that call sign and it'll capture it and put it into the entry window. I don't have.
Yeah, but that window's one of the many, but I understand. So yeah, I'm gonna. Are you saying that there are USB and HDMI add-ons that I can throw onto the laptop?
Yes, you can. And I picked up a USB one for under $90.
How big's the screen?
It's 11 or 12.
Oh, that's
diagonal.
Awesome.
It's as big. It's a little bit bigger than the laptop screen, actually.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You know what it's made for? It's actually made for when you're doing a presentation in an office. It's a little bit old technology, but the idea was you face that screen towards the other person and you mirror what you're seeing on your screen, so the two people can look at a laptop but facing each other.
So then, when you do the add-on screens, you just move the windows off. And
yeah, the first thing you need to do is, if you're adding another screen, is make sure you're extending your desktop, not mirroring your desktop.
Gotcha.
And then once you do that, you can just drag the windows off. So I could actually drag any of these windows off onto another screen right now.
Yeah, I think that's my only choice, because it gets pretty darn full fast on one screen.
Yes, it does.
Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. Other questions I can answer. Any other experiences that anyone's like to talk about that they've done with computer logging software? Any comments about other software or N1MM or?
That the engines for
Yes.
for RIDI, they're just like a one-time set and forget, because once it's set,
Yes.
it's configured for the operation.
Yes. And one of the things you want to do now, see what I just did is I brought up MMTTY. You don't want to do it this way. You actually want to configure it. And once you've got it configured, then you bring it up from within N1MM by opening it this way by opening up a digital contest. So if I come in here and I say I want to operate a digital contest, it would open that up automatically for me. So you want to do all the configuration, and I don't have I don't have time to really go through that, but there's some good step-by-step. There's a 5, and I'm trying to remember his call off the top of my head, that does a great job on RIDI setup with N1MM, and I don't remember his call sign off the top of my head right now. Does anyone out there remember who that is? It's a gentleman, a 5 in Texas. It has a really good step-by-step guide to doing this. I don't remember who it is off the top of my head, but there's also some great YouTubes on N1MM and a lot of help. And as I said earlier, it's a user-supported software, so there are a variety of people that work on different projects. Now, the other thing you can do too, let me just talk real quick. If, let's say you want to do just WSJTX, you're just doing a contest with FT8, you can configure N1MM to work with that, but what you can also do with it is you can actually use it after the contest as a way to score something that's not been scored. So you could take a file from your ADIF file from WSJTX, and you could import it into the program by using the import function. So what you need to do beforehand is set up the program for the contest that uses FT8 by going to the new log and setting all that up and choosing the modes as digital and all that. Once you get that all set up, you could then dump the log in by going to import and import ADIF file from a log, and you could take your file from from WSJTX and dump it into N1MM and do the scoring that way and create your Cabrillo log to submit that way. So a lot of people last year that were operating field day from home, a lot of them wanted to work FT8, but they really weren't that interested in learning how to use the logging software because they were just doing it casually. So I said, well, just run it, and then either I'll dump it in here and import it and score it for you, or I'll show you how to do that. So that's another option, another way you can do it. That's a lot simpler if you're not serious about it, if it's just something you're doing casually. Oh, another great way to learn how to use this software is just sit down, set it up for a contest, and don't operate. Just find someone who's running stations, tune to their frequency, and pretend you're them. And just keep typing everything in, logging all the contacts they'd be logging, hitting all the keys that they'd be hitting, and you'll get really good at it and very fast, and you don't have to worry about the stress of, am I making a mistake on the air? You don't even turn your radio. You don't even have to turn your radio on. You could do all that. So, or the next step is spend some time with another person operating, and you be the logger next to them. So it's a good way to learn it without a lot of pressure of being operating and logging at the same time.
Herb from Houston says WA5LEE.
That's it.
Thank you, Herbert. And I posted a link to a very interesting looking second monitor for laptops.
Other questions? I probably could turn this down a little bit so you're not hearing the CW going in the background. Anything else you'd like me to show?
Where's your window where the display, where the code comes across? Wouldn't that be?
Oh, I don't have it set up. I don't have a code interface on this.
But when you sent from the win queue, how do you know what's being received? How do you know when to answer and stuff?
Well, I'm decoding in my head.
Okay.
But you could have a code reader set up. I can also set here. I can put a code reader on the screen. Actually, I have a K3L, so it dumps out the data. So I can take the data and dump it out into another program. This is called WinSuite for K3. This is the program right here. K3, it's a control software, and it allows me to split it up so I can actually run multiple software devices using the same COM port. So I have this set up so I can run N1MM, my logging software, and WSJTX all on the same COM port on my K3. This is really interesting software. It's Win for K3 Suite. He also has one ICOM for Windows and a Yaesu one. So there's one, this lets you do port sharing. So I'm actually running one port for my serial port on my radio, and then I am actually using this software to create artificial ports to run all the software. But one of the things that on the, I got a screen, I got something off my main screen here. Where did it go? There we are. So this is the configuration screen. So I'm connecting to my radio on COM11, but I'm actually running a fake COM port 1516 pair, 1415 pair, 1617 pair, and 1819 pair that I'm running all my different software off of. But here's what you were actually originally asking about. The K3 can decode on the radio itself, and it'll spit the information out into this logging screen. But it doesn't interface with N1M at all. So you see KJ9C.
QSB messing up.
Got him now. So I got Mel in Indiana. That's a little bit too close for him to be on 40 meters this time of night. But I did get him.
Good.
Okay, other questions? Again, as I said earlier, let me bring this up real quick here. There we go. This slide presentation in here, this slideshow, the full slideshow, is only 120 some slides. Oh no, I'm sorry. There's only 108 slides. I overestimated. If this is, you can go to this link also, tiny.cc/n1mm-elmer, and that's the exceedingly long presentation with everything about the software. And there's even a section here about setting up your radio drivers and setting up your interface, updating the software, setting up your CW, setting up, this is an example of one of the simple circuits. This is the one I'm using when I don't use WinKeyer. I use this circuit right here with an opto isolator in it. But all this information is in this long slideshow. And you can also watch the video that's, as I said, it's only, I think it's 2 hours and 45 minutes.
So just to be sure, clear, Anthony, N1MM is only your contesting software. You use other software for your main logging program.
Yes. Now, some people use it as a DXing software also, when they're doing DXing. So you could use it for a DX, if you're a DXpedition, you could definitely use it for that. I mean, it's not really a contest, but it has a DXing capability. And when you're doing that, it doesn't expect an exchange. One of the problems is if you're using it for everyday software. Let's say I get right here and I want to work this guy, and you know what? I don't know his name, or I don't know his exchange. I just want to log him because I don't need that information for my log. Watch what happens. It's going to not let me hit the enter and put it in there because it wants an exchange. And finally it'll say, hey, I want an exchange. And then it gives you a choice, finally, do you want to log it anyway? So you could, but you're not going to want to do that over and over again. So what you do instead is you go into the DX mode. So we just say new log. And now for our contest, we'll pick, oh, wait a second, it won't let you go into that setup when you have something in the log. New log. So we come over here and choose DX. And when you do that, notice now it just looks like a little log. You can put, once you get the call sign in there, it doesn't care about the rest of it. You can hit enter anytime you want with any of the information other than just the call sign. So if I was just working a bunch of stations, I could just keep working people. It gives me the super partial check, and it lets me keep logging, but it doesn't worry about an exchange. I did this when I was working the, I got my little thing right here. I can actually show it. Maybe it'll show up. We'll see. My little coins, because I was W1 AW Portable 8. And when I was doing that, I used the DX mode to just the workstations because there was no exchange other than their call sign and a signal report. So it's not my main logging software; it's just my contesting software. So I do that. I do use the other separate software, and as I said earlier, I dump the information in there because I have about 90-some thousand QSOs in my general log. And the other thing I do too, let me bring it up here real quick.
Anyone know what Logic 9 costs?
I think it's $99. I think it's $99.
Okay.
For new. I do a renewal of it. So what I do with all my log is I actually dump all my logs out into a spreadsheet so I can analyze them. And you'll see that in this particular spreadsheet I have 94,000 QSOs. And then by using a variety of pivot tables, I do things like calculate the number of QSOs per band per year. So right now I'm at 1,258. Last year was my highest year ever, 10,621. And then I can do graphs and comparisons and band analyzations to see what bands I was on. I also do QSO by mode for each year. And you can see then that this is this year so far, what my picture looks like with CW, single sideband RTTY, FT8 and FT4. I also do, this table lets me analyze the first time I worked my first DXCC. And I can look at it each year. So right now for this year, 2001, I am not quite there yet. I'm at 93 for this year. Or I can go back and put all my years in there and see when the last time I worked in New Country, which is 2018. I have another one where I have the same thing for worked all states. So this year, for 2021, you'll see that I worked all states on January 4th. That was very helped out by the RTTY contest and an FT8 contest, both in those first two weekends, the first weekend of January. I do things like CQ zone analyzation to see which zones I've worked on, which modes, how many stations. CQ by band. Sometimes it takes a little while to load some of these pages. just number of QSOs per day in each year, average number of QSOs, QSOs by band, by state. And then even things like how many times I've worked each call sign. So PJ2T is the top of my log with 266 entries. KP2M is 127. So I can tell you every one I worked over 50 times. I've worked 100 stations 50 times, all the way down to the people I've worked once. So every time I change the data in this, it takes a little while to calculate. How many people have I worked now? I have worked about 32,500 people. And then I do the same thing with my FT8 and FT4. Okay, well, that's pretty much everything. Unless you have, I'm happy to answer any more questions you might have.
Nothing in chat.
Okay,
Looking real good. A great presentation. Thank you, Anthony.
I outlasted everyone.
I got something real quick.
Yes.
What are your hardware specs? You mentioned additional drives and stuff. What kind of RAM and stuff are you running with all that desktop?
Okay, for the N1MM, you need, a minimal machine will work, but they do not support Windows 7 any longer.
Right.
So you have to have Windows 8 or newer. It's not real RAM intensive. The thing that can slow things down is the only thing that's RAM intensive in N1MM is the spot log. So if you can filter down the spots coming from the DX cluster that you're using, that will help performance. That's the one thing that can be a performance hit. I'm running 32 gigs of RAM here, and because I'm running a bunch, you notice I right now have 5 browser windows open, and each of them have 20 or 30 tabs open in it. I just got tired of that, and I just added 16 more gigs of RAM last year, and said I don't want to ever have to worry about how many windows I have open. I'm running 3 monitors. As you can see in the picture here, I have the monitor behind me, the monitor off to my above me, and then a monitor off to the left, which you can't see in this picture because I'm blocking it. So I'm running 3 monitors. I typically don't use the top monitor all the time. I mainly put things up there like maps, the gray line, things like that I don't need to bring the mouse to do anything with. So it's a great place for displaying statistics without having to touch anything else on the screen. But the actual N1MM specs are pretty simple. Let me bring it up here real quick. I can do that, maybe. The only thing with multiple monitors, sometimes you lose something on the wrong window. So let me try this one more time. So here's a question with the specs here for will N1M run on a computer. By the way, it's only available for Windows. You can run it under Wine and other emulation software, but there is no other program software. Minimum hardware requirements. Windows 10, I guess they still support 7, even though Microsoft support has ended. They no longer have versions that run on Windows XP, although you can still get old versions that will do it. I don't see any RAM definitions here. But again, it's not that. They suggest a single core 1.6 as a minimum processor. Recommended resolution 1024. I don't see anything about RAM here. They don't have any RAM specifications, but I run on a laptop. I mean, for field day, I run it's a laptop tablet. It's not that fantastic of a machine, but it works fine on there. But I'm also not doing spotting when I'm running field day. That's the one thing that is the RAM hog is the incoming spots, processing all those. Anything else I can answer?
There is, when I did my initial install, there is something in the documents that ask you to tweak your settings as far as processor priority and
Yeah,
power settings and stuff to get the most out of it. It's real helpful.
yes. But I'm running a machine now that I don't have to mess with too much. It pretty much handles everything I throw at it. So, but yeah, I've used it on a number of machines without much problem.
All right.
All right, yes.
Presentation.
Well, after Dan shuts down, I'll jump back in if anyone has any questions. But I'll let you all definitely let Oscar go to sleep there.
Yeah,
What's it? It's tomorrow. It's past tomorrow. It's probably almost Friday for him there.
we've lost a bunch, and most of them are going to be along the East Coast. It's really late for them.
Well, that was convenient that we were on long enough that the contest came on.
Yeah.
Okay, I removed the spotlight. I think I did anyway.
Yep.
Yes.
We're back into gallery.
Okay, super. So you got your. Okay, everybody, this has been a long one, but a very good one. Thank you very much, Anthony. After we get out of here, you can come right back in again, and it's all set up. So you can talk, visit about amongst yourselves and discuss more of these things. Thanks again, and see you tomorrow night. I just got to find my